If you've been scrolling through endless forums, watching YouTube demos, and still feel stuck between a pricey industrial laser and a basic MIG set, you're not alone. That hesitation wondering whether you'll waste money on a gadget that sounds too good to be true gets even louder when you start picturing the first piece you'll actually try to weld. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to walk through exactly what the xTool MetalFab 1200w 3-in-1 laser welding machine does in a real workshop, where it shines, and where it might leave you wishing for something else. First off, the whole idea of a 3-in-1 laser for metal can feel like a marketing buzzword until you break it down into the 3 tasks it claims to handle: welding, cutting, and cleaning. If you're the type of maker who spends a weekend building a custom bike frame, then having one machine that can lay down a clean bead, trim excess material, and then remove oxidation without swapping tools is a genuine time saver. On the other hand, if you only need to tack a few brackets together once a year, that same versatility can become overkill and a bigger expense than you actually need. Let's talk about the core promise: industrial-level power that delivers flawless professional welds. In practice, the 1200w laser head does produce a focused beam that can melt thin-sheet steel, aluminum, and even some copper alloys with a consistency that feels more like a torch than a traditional laser cutter. In my own test, I took a 1mm stainless steel sheet, set the machine to the weld mode, and the bead ran straight across without the spatter you normally see with MIG. The result was a smooth, almost mirror-finished joint that required no post-cleaning. For anyone who has wrestled with the fumes and slag of a TIG setup, that's a noticeable reduction in cleanup time. The cutting function works similarly. Instead of switching to a plasma cutter, you just flip a dial, and the same laser head slices through 2mm mild steel in a matter of seconds. The edge quality is clean enough that I could feed the cut piece straight into a CNC drill without having to sand down burrs first. That's a practical win for people who prototype parts that need to stay within tight tolerances. Think custom brackets for a drone or a small enclosure for a robotics project. Cleaning is the third pillar, and it's the one that surprised me the most. The laser can be set to a lower power setting that essentially burns off rust and paint without damaging the underlying metal. I tried it on an old piece of galvanized pipe that had a few years of outdoor exposure. After a quick pass, the surface went from flaky orange to a bright, re-edited paint finish. For hobbyists who enjoy refurbishing vintage metal items, that built-in cleaning step eliminates the need for a separate sandblaster or chemical stripper. Now, the headline claim that the system has a zero learning curve deserves a nuanced look. The interface is indeed straightforward: a color touchscreen that walks you through weld, cut, or clean presets, and you can dial in material thickness with a few taps. However, you still need to understand basic laser safety: proper ventilation, eye protection, and keeping the work area clear of flammable materials. The machine does include safety interlocks, and the company's guarantee promises support if you hit a snag, but you can't skip the safety briefings that come with any high-power laser. If you're comfortable setting up a fume extraction system and have a dedicated workspace, the ramp-up time is probably a couple of evenings. If you're trying to bolt the unit onto a kitchen table with no ventilation, you'll quickly run into practical obstacles. One of the biggest hidden trade-offs is size and power consumption. The MetalFab sits on a sturdy steel base and weighs close to 100 pounds, so it's not something you'll roll out of a garage and stash away after each project. It needs a stable bench, a dedicated power outlet, the 1200w draw can trip standard home circuits, and a bit of floor space. For a small home workshop that already has a table saw, a bench grinder, and a 3D printer, that's manageable. For a cramped apartment or a hobbyist who works out of a borrowed garage, the footprint might be a deal breaker. Value for money is where the rating of 4.3 stars out of 5 from a handful of reviewers starts to make sense. The price point sits in the mid-four-figure range, far cheaper than a full industrial laser system, but higher than a conventional MIG welder. When you add up the cost of buying a laser cutter, a MIG or TIG welder, and a separate cleaning solution, the MetalFab starts to look like a consolidated investment. It especially pays off if you're planning to do a series of projects that require all 3 functions, because each separate machine would also demand its own maintenance schedule, safety gear, and learning curve. Who should buy this? If you're a serious maker, a small-scale fabricator, or a jewelry artisan who works with thin precious metal sheets,